video, we are going to discuss the questions from square of opposition asked in NTA UGC in December 2023 exam. So we have already explored this particular concept previously in this YouTube channel. We have made two different videos based on square of opposition. So in one of the videos, we have explored the concept, and also in another video, we have specifically focused on a kind of or a type of question that is match the following questions that were asked in a few previous year exams from square of opposition. So these two video links are available in the description box. So please do watch those videos and then you can move to this one, because in this session, we'll be particularly focusing on the questions asked in December 2023 net exam. So we'll be focusing on those videos. So we have already explored the concepts in the previous videos. So we'll be doing this video on the basis of those two videos. Okay. So please do watch that videos and understand the concepts, and then you can move to this one. So I'll just give you an introduction about square of opposition, but we're not going into the details as such, but because we have already explored it in the previous sessions. But anyway, let's look at, or let's refresh what we have learned in the previous videos. So when you consider square of opposition, we need to understand the four different types of prepositions. Okay, so these prepositions can be considered as statements as such. So we have four different types: A, E, I, and O. A type can be called this universal affirmative. That means all dogs are mammals. It's a universal affirmative statement. It's a universal statement. We are saying about all dogs, right? And it's positive as well, because all dogs are mammals. We are affirming that idea. So it's universal affirmative. Then we have E type, that is universal negative. No dogs are cats. So it's a universal statement because we are saying about all the dogs. No dogs are cats, right? It's universal as well as it's negative. Then we have particular affirmative. Some poets are singers. It's about some poets, so it's particular. And we're affirming that some poets are singers. So it's affirmation. It's a positive statement. So that is particular affirmative. Then we have particular negative. Some poets are not singers. So it's about a group, a specific group, some poets, and we are saying that they are not singers. So it's particular negative. So these are the four different types of prepositions, and this square of opposition is basically giving you an idea, or it's a diagrammatic representation of the relationship between these different types of categorical prepositions, or these different types of statements. So we have already explored this idea in the previous session. I think you have already watched that. So we have four different prepositions, and we can connect it in various manners. We have universal affirmative and universal negative, that is contrary, universal affirmative, particular affirmative, subordination. So these are the various relationships that we can identify here, and also we have explored the nature of their relationship as well. Let's say if you consider contradictories, if one is true, then the other will be definitely false. So these ideas we have already explored in the previous session. So now we are going to look at some of the questions that were asked from this area in the very recent December 2023 exam. As I already said, as we already explored this area in the previous video, I am not going into the details. We will be particularly focusing on the questions. Detailed session can be watched using the links that are provided in the description box. So here I have the first question. As per square of opposition, which of the following prepositions are contradictories? And we have the options: all birds are apes, no birds are apes, some birds are apes, and some birds are not apes. Okay, so if you consider this square of opposition, we have two pairs that can be considered as contradictories. Which are the two pairs? We have A type and O type. They are contradictories. E type and I type, they are contradictories. That means universal affirmative and particular negative, they are contradictories, as well as universal negative and particular affirmative, they are contradictories as well. Okay, so if that's the case, if you consider the option that are given here, or the statements that are given here, we can say that all birds are apes, as well as some birds are not apes. A and D can be considered as contradictories from the square of opposition. All birds are apes and some birds are not apes. So if you consider the options or combinations that are given there, we don't have an option which includes A and D, right? So in that case, we need to consider the next option. The second pair is universal negative and particular affirmative. No birds are apes and some birds are apes. B and C. If you just go through the options, we have an option that is given there, that is B and C only. So the right answer is option C. So of course we have two pairs, but when we consider this question, we need to look at the combinations that are provided there also. So in that manner, we can go with option C, that is B and C only. Okay, moving to the next question. If the statement some rectangles are not squares is given as true, then according to the square of a position, which of the following statements can by immediately inferred to be false? And we have the options. All rectangles are squares, some rectangles are squares, no rectangles are squares, some squares are not rectangles. If you consider the question that is provided here, the question asks us to find if the statement some rectangles are not squares is given as true, then which among the following statements can be immediately inferred as false? If you have this kind of a statement, if one is true, the next one is immediately inferred as false, that means they are contradictory. That is what we can understand from this question, right? And the statement that is given here is some rectangles are not squares. Some rectangles are not squares means a particular negative, O type. So which is the contradictory of O type preposition? That is A, right? Universal affirmative. If that's the case, from the given options, which will be the right answer that you can choose? That is option A, all rectangles are squares. So of course, the right answer is option A itself. to the next question. In a square of opposition of propositions, which of the following is correct? So they have given you 4 different options, and it creates or it gives you certain combinations of relationship between various propositions, and from the given options we need to understand or identify the correct one which is provided. Okay, so let's go through each and every option. The first option says if A is given as false, O is undetermined. So let's consider this scenario using the square of opposition or the diagram. Okay, so A means universal affirmative. So if universal affirmative is true, then what will be the condition of O? O means particular negative, and they are contradictories as well. That means if one is true, then the other one is definitely false. So if A is true, then definitely O will be false, and if A is false, definitely O will be true. That's the idea. But the question in this option, it says that if A is given as false, O is undetermined. That is wrong, right? If A is given as false, then we can definitely say as O or O as true, right? So that option is not correct. So you can eliminate that. The next one is if E is given as false, I is false. So it says about the relationship between E and I. Okay. So if you consider E and I are contradictories again. So if E is false, then I is definitely true. That is how they are related to each other. They are contradictory. So if E is false, then I is definitely true. But in the options, it says that if E is given as false, I is false. So again, that option is wrong. You can eliminate that. Moving to the next option, if I is given as false, A is false. So it says about the relationship between A and I. That means universal affirmative and particular affirmative. So if you consider A and I, they are subalternation or subalterns. That is how they are related to each other. So if you have already watched the previous video which explained this concept of or the relationship, the nature of the relationship between subalterns, we know that if the universal is true, particular is true. And when it considers, or if you consider the relationship between subalterns, it is like this. If universal is true, particular is true. And if particular is false, universal is false. That means if A is true, I is true. But if I is false, A is false. So if you consider the option that is given here, it says that if I is given as false, A is false. So in that manner, you can say that, okay, option C is the right answer. Okay. So we need to identify the correct combination or the correct option from the given possibility. So C is of course correct. Anyway, now we got the answer, but let's look at option D also. What's the condition of option D? If O is given as false, E is true. So it says about O and T. O and T means they are subalternation. So this is what we have mentioned earlier also. If E is true, O is true. If O is false, E is false. That is how they are connected to each other. But in this option, it says if O is given as false, E is true. That's wrong. If O is given as false, then definitely E will be false. So from the options that are given, we can say that the right answer is option C. We need to identify on the basis of square of opposition of proposition, we need to identify the correct combination that is given there, and this of course option C. So the right answer is option C itself. Moving to the next question. As per square of opposition, if the statement all apes are mammals is given as true, which of the following statements can be immediately inferred to be false? And we have the options: no apes are mammals, some apes are mammals, some mammals are apes, and also some apes are not mammals. So if you consider these options that are given here, they have given you 4 different options, and what we need to identify here is if all apes are mammals is given as true, then which among the following can be immediately inferred to be false? So when we explored about the square of opposition, the concept of square of opposition, one of the most important ideas we said there is, if we need to connect 2 different propositions in the relationship of square of opposition, then one criteria should be satisfied. That is, the subject and the predicate of both these propositions must be true. That is one condition that we already explored, right? If 2 propositions having their subject and predicate similar, then only we can associate these categorical propositions in the relationship of square of opposition. In that manner, if you consider the statement that is provided in the question, it says that all apes are mammals. So, if you need to consider an option from the given possibilities, then it should have the similar subject and predicate. From that itself, you can eliminate option C, right? Why is it so? Because in option C, it says that some mammals are apes. Here the subject and predicate are different. Here the subject is apes, then in the square of opposition relationship also the subject should be apes, right? In that manner we can eliminate this option, because as I have already mentioned, in square of opposition relationship the subject and the predicate should be one and the same in both the categorical prepositions. So this violates that, or this is having a different subject. Here it's apes, here it's mammals, and here the predicate is mammals and here it is apes. So even though it's like interchanged as such, but we cannot consider that. So you can eliminate that option. This is one idea that you need to take into account. So if you consider this option or the statement that is given there, it is universal affirmative in nature. Okay, so in one of our videos that particularly focuses on how to solve match the following questions that are coming from square of opposition, we have discovered a particular concept, a particular way in which we need to explore square of opposition. That is, if a particular proposition is given as true, then what is the condition of other options or the other propositions that are present in the square of opposition. We can use that idea here in this question as well. So here it says that A type or universal affirmative is given as true, then which among the following statement can be immediately inferred to be false? If that's the case, let's consider this one. The question says that A proposition is true. If A is true, then what is the condition of the other three propositions that we need to consider under square of opposition? Let's consider option, or let's consider proposition E. So A and E are connected and they can be called as contraries, and if you consider their relationship, it is like they can be false together but they cannot be true together. That is how they are connected to each other. This we have already explored in the previous sessions. So in contraries, they can be false together but they cannot be true together. That means they cannot be true together. If one is true, then the other one is definitely false. They cannot be true together. So in that case, if A is true, E will be definitely false. Next, if you consider A and I. Okay, if A is true, what will be the condition of I? Subordination is the relationship. How are they related? If A is true, then I is true, and if I is false, A is true. This is the relationship that we explore there. So it says that A is true. If A is true, then definitely I will be true. Okay, so I is true. Then if we consider O and A, or A and O, so they are contradictories. A and O are contradictories. That means if one is true, then other will be definitely false. If A is true, then O will be definitely false. In this scenario, we can consider, or if we consider this concept, we can say that if universal affirmative is true, then there are two different propositions that will be false. One is E. E means universal negative. So let's consider if we have an option universal negative here. Yes, we have, that is option A, no apes are mammals. So that is false. So you can take that option. The next one is O. If A is true, O will be definitely false. O means particular negative. Particular negative, we need to consider there. Particular negative is option D. Some apes are not mammals. In this manner, we can say that if the statement all apes are mammals is given as true, no apes are mammals and some apes are not mammals can be immediately inferred to be false. So A and D only will be the right answer. A and D only is option C. So the right answer is option C itself. So in this video, we have explored the questions that were asked from the area square of opposition and the recent December 2023 net exam. So we have already explored this particular concept in two of our previous videos, as I have already mentioned. That's why we haven't gone to the details of the concept as such. We were particularly focusing on the questions. Okay, so just watch those videos and be familiar with the concept, and you can use these questions, these recent questions, in order to get a very good idea about how you can expect questions in the very recent NTA UGC net exams as well. So that's it for this session. Thank you and happy learning.